All right, everyone, it's Dave Barnett once again, and this time I'm speaking with reader Chris Pritchard, who's near Monterey, California. And Chris read my book and then went out looking for some local investing deals and ended up finding an opportunity in raw land. And so I wanted to get Chris on because he was good enough to have hooked up Mark Podolsky and I. We did a little podcast interview a couple weeks ago. So Chris, hey, welcome to my YouTube channel, I guess. Welcome to my show.
Thanks, Dave. Nice to be here.
I think that the best thing to do, now, you contacted me fairly quickly after you read Invest Local, and you're regularly a contributor to the Invest Local Facebook group.
Yep.
Why don't you start by telling everyone how you got started, and maybe what was your motivation for buying my book when you heard me, I think it was on Jerry Robinson's podcast.
Yeah, Jerry Robinson, he's kind of been a really good resource for finding really actionable things, because Mark was on there as well. And so I listened to his show with you, and I was like, really, the book was something that I hadn't come across before. It was a very down to earth, actionable book that I could read through, maybe have a few questions, but I could really understand, because everyone's entered into these kinds of situations with people, just day to day, and so I figured, if you're always on the say the borrower side of it, it's not that hard to envision yourself on the other side of it if given some guidance, like in the book. So that really kind of connected a few things in my mind as far as how to get on the other side of those deals.
So you were relating it to like an advertisement for auto financing, or maybe one of those furniture or television deals that you see advertised for financing, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So you see those things, you see people offering financing on things all the time, and the majority of people are on the side of being the borrower. So your book really showed a really great way to be on the other side of that and take advantage of that situation.
Okay. So after you read Invest Local, and oh look, I got a copy right here. After you read Invest Local, you went out and tried to think of a way to do one of those deals for yourself. Is that it?
Well, yeah, I read the chapter where you bought the van for the guy who needed a work van, so it's for his business, and it increased his basically his business was improved by the purchase of this van. So you improved his cash flow position, and the numbers were nice. There were good margins in there because you bought it for cash, and then you put it on the payments for the lease first, and then you put it on payments after that. So the total ROI on that deal was very impressive. So that's one thing I read a few times, and I said, well, I just need to find some widgets. I need to find something that I can replicate. Do those kinds of deals over and over. So that's where I was at after reading your book. I was my mind was open. The juices were flowing to try to figure out. My mind was ready to hear about the next thing, like what it could be for me. You know what I mean? And so that's when I just keep listening to Jerry Robinson all the time, and he happened to have Mark Podolsky on there one time, and I'm like, yeah, that's my thing right there. So
cool. So you took a training program through Mark, and he taught you like how to find and purchase these parcels of raw land. Why don't you tell us about once you took his training and you started looking, like how long did it take for you before you bought your first plot of land? And then in turn, how long did it take before you sold it on a note and started to create that cash flow?
Okay. At first there was like a lot of information. It may have been about a month before I actually put some money down on some land. Not down, I mean, made a cash purchase for some land. And then I was the whole time I'm fumbling around, learning things, not knowing the next step. So I bought the land, and, It took me about a month to get it like listed and actually make my first sale. And in that month's time, I got some other land. So I was basically still working on acquiring land before I made the first sale. And I really was wanting to make that first sale. At first, it was kind of like it seemed like a long time. In retrospect, it may not be as long as I thought, but it seemed like it took a while. But I was being coachable. I was doing the things in the program, and I just you saw some of my early posts. I think when I first made that sale, I actually post on your Facebook page, hey, I got my sale. And then before that, we did some hypotheticals. You did the desert parcel, Chris's desert land video.
Yeah.
Call. So all that was going on, and yeah, eventually I did get the first sale, and then really it speeds up after that. A lot's happened. I'm learning things every day, so it's progressing.
So you've been doing that system for about, would you say, 4 or 5 months now. How many sales have you made? How many notes do you have that are active right now?
I've 10 notes. I've got a cash flow monthly, basically payments on the land of about $1,500, and the total notes, face value of the notes is about $90,000. So that doesn't count like the down payments and some other things that come into play. So I mean, I could be about at 100,000 total of income, or at least between the income from the down payments and the contract amounts. So
in general, do the down payments that the buyers give you more or less cover your investment in a lot of cases?
No. The one I did over the weekend, I didn't put anything down on it, and the contract amount was about $33,000. So it was the biggest deal I've done, and I didn't put any money on it. So part of that was just some of the learning that I've done. Part of it was the particulars of that the situation of that deal. But normally, I try to target between the down payment and like say the first 6 months or 12 months at the most for repayment on the principal. And then so if it's a 4-year contract, then the last 3 years would be financing the profit. I think that you've used that term before.
Yeah. It's the other term that sometimes people use is that it's called owning a tail, or being free and clear after a certain point or a certain number of payments have come through. So basically, a little bit of education and 4 or 5 months of effort have put you in a position where you've basically grown your income producing assets, by 90 grand minus whatever investment you have left to recoup out of it. It's been a huge gain for you, basically, through your own effort, just being smart and learning some new tricks.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty amazing. Like I feel like I just got started, but I mean, to see where I've come from, and it's just I really enjoy where I'm at right now, and I feel like it's paid off well enough, and I feel confident enough to keep moving forward and investing more into this. As far as like I've got a website up, and I've got land listed on there. I've got some virtual assistants helping me with various parts of the business. So it's definitely getting to where I can start scaling a little more, get more listings up there. And basically, when I started, I would buy the land basically up front. I would buy the land and then I would list it. But since there's kind of an option contract built into the offers, when they sign them, I go ahead and start doing my due diligence and getting those listed on the website. So having a website helps a lot too. I've done a lot with Craigslist. That's where a lot of the leads come in. But I'm just getting better at kind of being more efficient with the business now.
So, okay, now this is interesting because you're talking about sort of a going concern aspect to your investing here. Obviously, in order to find a really great deal on a parcel of land, you probably have to make a large number of contacts with potential sellers and a large number of offers. Can you talk
Yes.
a little bit about that? Like how much effort goes into discovering each opportunity?
So I send out about 100 letters a week, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. I mean, you could basically upload an Excel spreadsheet into a letter service, and then I mean, really, the sky's the limit. But you might spend a couple $100 on 100 letters, just depending on your volume. But really, it's I get lists of potentials with various parameters and things like that, and then I have a letter. I do a mail merge, and I just send out about 100 of those a week. I actually still write out the address on the front so that it's more personable. I feel like if I handwrite on the letter, then people are more likely to open it. But everybody's kind of got their own theories, on that.
Yeah, no, I'm in your camp. I would agree that a handwritten address definitely gets more attention. I mean, I've noticed recently the amount of addressed sort of junk mail has gone down over the last couple of years where I live anyway. But if I see something that's handwritten, it definitely has got my interest. You think immediately it's from someone you know.
Yeah, exactly. And there are services that are pretty good at making it appear that way, and they'll do little doodles and things on the envelope or whatever to make it appear that way. But I mess up on so many of mine, you can't mistake it for something that's mass, produced.
With the little scratch outs and things.
Like, oops, I'll change the 6 to a 3 or whatever, right? On the zip code or something. I mean, that happens, and I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. It just makes it more, there's more character to that one, and it's more likely to get open.
So now, with other people that I've talked with who've read my book and who are kind of looking at doing some sort of local investment, a lot of people seem very gung ho. They go looking for that investment. They find an opportunity, and they reach this choke point or this terror barrier, I guess, and it's the point where they actually have to write a check or put money out.
Oh yeah, that's tough.
Talk a little bit about the first time you actually had to put your money where your mouth was. Like, how did you feel, and how did you deal with those feelings?
Well, yeah, I think you're kind of touching on like analysis paralysis, and I have a computer science background, and I do code and like everything. I always want to be exact and have everything polished. That's always been the way I would approach anything like this before. But this time I decided I wasn't going to go that route. I mean, I feel like I got sticks and stones. I'm writing out these envelopes. Before, my mentality would be, oh, well, I need to do a website. I've got to get my LLC in order. I've got to, get some money so that I can write some checks and not be scared about it. But I don't care how much money you've got. You're going to be scared when you write those checks. So, I did my due diligence. That fear is not too bad, but you don't want to let it hold you back, because you do have to commit at something at some point. I think it's just a matter of feeling confident that you are making the right deal, that you're investing in the right thing.
I remember the moment when I had sort of the biggest knot in my stomach, and I can remember this moment. It was back when I used to own small apartment buildings, and I got a call one day from a basement apartment tenant, and it had been raining for like 3 days. And where we live up here on the east coast of Canada, we get a lot of tail end of hurricane storms. Like they hit the southern coast of the U.S. and they kind of roll up the coast, and we end up just with days of rain, kind of thing. And it had been raining for 3 days, and he called me up and he said, "Dave, I have 2 inches of water in my living room." And I remember this knot in my stomach, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I drove over there, and I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do. And the tenant actually said to me, well, do you have insurance? And I said, of course I have insurance.
Yeah.
So I called the insurance company, and they told me what to do. Like, just step by step. And it's like, once you've been through one of those experiences, then the next time it happens, of course, you're not terrified. You learn to roll with it. But what what I've come to learn personally is that when my stomach feels that way, now instead of being afraid, I think that I'm being presented with an opportunity to learn and get a new sort of notch on my belt, a new experience, a new task that is going to help me grow as a person. And most of the time these things come from the world of business, and you know, extending yourself out of your comfort zone and getting into some place where you have an opportunity to grow. Like, I mean, look, this note portfolio that you've got now after only 4 or 5 months of working on it is really quite an achievement. And I mean, you would know that these opportunities are out there. You're going to continue to grow this, and this is going to snowball over time.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what bit of advice do you think that you would give to someone else who they're interested in getting into local investing? Maybe they've read my book, they haven't done a deal of any kind. What sort of bit of advice would you give those people to help them move forward?
Well, I think it's really a matter of focusing on the things in that particular business or investment type that are going to show you the results. In the land, they call it M&Ms. It's mailing and marketing. So you're always sending out those letters, and you're always listing the properties as soon as possible, so that you get the most exposure. So there's as little possible time between acquiring that land and getting it out to someone making payments. And that's just, everything else in the business. Yes, it's important, of course, like doing taxes, you've got to do all that stuff, cross your T's and dot your I's and that sort of thing. But as far as the business goes, if you want to perform, you've got to focus on the couple things that make you the money in that line of, whatever that investment type is.
Now, you made the decision to go and get specific training about a specific asset class. In this case, being raw land. And what I think is great about that is a lot of the times I talk about, and I think I went on for a few minutes about this in my audio book, about how to find your first deal, is you need to focus on what you know. And there's so many people out there who work in trades or work in certain industries, and they have a lot of knowledge about certain types of equipment or certain things. That's where you start. Now, in this case, you went out and learned a new thing, but you invested in getting that specific knowledge.
Yeah, but land's something I've always had an interest in. In fact, part of, before I actually saw Mark's show with Jerry Robinson, I was actually looking at purchasing some land, and and he wanted to sell it on terms. He may have been doing the same thing, and I'm like, well, that's really expensive. I just didn't want to dive in and buy that land. I just knew that there might be a cheaper way to do it, and so there were some, that was one thing that kind of put me into the mindset of I've got to find a way to get this same kind of land cheaper, because this guy's selling it retail on terms and all that sort of thing. So there were some things that kind of led me down that path. So there's always been, land's something that I've always been, I guess, interested in. So I didn't just, hear it and say, well, I could try land. It was more, it really hit me right where it needed to, I guess, at the time. My mind was ready for that.
Okay, so it actually was something that you had a certain interest in, that you had spent time. I mean, obviously, if you were looking at land, you had a feeling for, how is land valued, what affects the price, access, water, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So those things had been, on my mind. So it worked pretty well. I wouldn't say, obviously I'm not a realtor. I haven't been in real estate or anything like that. You don't need to be for this. It's not the same kind of thing. In fact, that's one of the advantages, is that if you go to real estate investment websites, the land people are very much the minority, and so there's not as much competition. So it's, it does have some advantages, and there's less things to worry about. If you go buy a piece of land, you don't have to worry about all the due diligence that you would with a house. You bought a house recently, so you had a lot of work to get it inspected and check everything out, kick the tires, so to speak, and make sure it was right for you. But with raw land, there's not too many things that can go wrong. You don't want a super fun deal, but other than that, there's only a few things to check on.
It's funny you mentioned the house. And for anyone who hasn't seen the videos, I basically bought a surplus house from the Canadian Army. And the inspection came back really well because being a rental home to soldiers, every time something went wrong, they just picked up the phone and called, and it was someone's job to fix it properly. So the house was well maintained, but the way that here in Canada we refer to the government as the Crown. So the way that the Crown conveyed the land to me was actually through a royal land grant. So this land was given to me the same way that land was given to settlers 200 years ago. And quite honestly, the land was granted to me. They make no mention whatsoever and will deny any knowledge of a house being here.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was a royal land grant of a certain piece of land, and included anything that happened to be on it. And so it was quite an interesting process, because I bought and sold apartment buildings and houses many times before, but always through the more traditional real estate process, never through something as exotic as the way it was done this time.
Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks a lot for taking the time out to talk with me tonight, and thanks a lot for being amongst one of the first people to buy my book last year. And I look forward to seeing your comments and stuff on the Facebook group.
All right. Thanks, David.
All right. We'll talk to you later.